Hello, I'm Richard Gizbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, Super Tuesday, and the media as players in the world of politics.
What a big day. Today is Fat Tuesday. It's Super Duper Tuesday.
The power of words, how the use of terminology can change the story.
Literally holding hands with Iran's dictator.
Hope for the Afghan student journalist faced with a death sentence. And Super Sunday, the most expensive television commercials the world has ever seen. Welcome back. The biggest news story of 2008 is the U.S. presidential election campaign. And this past week, it reached its high watermark in terms of coverage on Super Tuesday. With thousands of delegates up for grabs in so many states, the U.S. media gorged on the story of Barack Obama taking on Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, as well as John McCain's march to the Republican nomination. The global media were on the story as well. There was unprecedented overseas coverage of the fight for power in Washington. Our starting point this week, the U.S. media. Are they simply reporting on the democratic process in the U.S., or do they influence voters in an election that billions of people, not just Americans, have a stake in? America is still recovering from the media onslaught that was Super Tuesday. And for all of the coverage that is now safely behind us, of the debates.
And you know, it did take a Clinton to clean after the first Bush, and I think it might take another one to clean up after the second Bush.
The endorsements, the flashpoints.
How is it that you're the expert on my position, when my position has been very clear?
The tears.
I just don't want to see us fall backwards. You know.
And the polls. Consider for a moment that the actual election, the vote that counts, is still 9 months away.
That's a good question. How are we going to keep it up? A tremendous amount of coverage. Before Super Tuesday,
it was the last debate before Super Tuesday, one last chance.
You had a tremendous amount of coverage for Super Tuesday.
This is a special Super Tuesday edition of BBC World News America.
And when there's a lot of coverage, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of good coverage. In fact, the sheer quantity of coverage often can bury some of the best stories.
The 24-hour news channels have turned the news coverage of this election into a very aggressive, round-the-clock battle for news. And that's why every little development sometimes is covered and maybe over-covered depending on what happens. Did Barack Obama snub Hillary Clinton at the State of the Union address?
Some people are saying that he snubbed you. Do you feel that you were snubbed last night?
Did he turn away? Those kind of things sometimes become the story, and they shouldn't become the story.
I think the media sort of took that still photo and turned it into something that it wasn't, and the Clinton campaign was the beneficiary of it. It allowed Mrs. Clinton to come back over and over again and say,
I reached out my hand in friendship and unity.
And it is still extended, and I hope that we can blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think that was a manufactured episode, and she used it well.
More immediate question, though, is who will win the nomination. The race.
If you cover politics and you're trying to communicate politics, there's a certain amount of technical expertise that you need, a certain baseline of information you need to kind of understand what the substance of the debates are, etc. If you're covering a snub between one candidate and another, it doesn't entail any previous knowledge of the issues or anything. It's the kind of thing that anyone can understand. Someone turned his back on someone else.
On the Republican side,
however, certain media moments, little flashpoints, can offer glimpses at how candidates deal with pressure. Before he quit the race, Republican Mitt Romney clashed with an Associated Press reporter who questioned the candidate when Romney tried to distance himself from lobbyists.
I don't have lobbyists running my campaign. I don't have lobbyists that are tied to my...
That's not true, Governor. That is not true. Ron Kaufman is a lobbyist. How can you say you don't have a lobbyist?
Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said, Glenn?
It's rare enough to hear a presidential candidate interrupted and criticized to his face. Rare still to have it come from a member of the mainstream media.
Mitt Romney behaved horrifically with that AP reporter. If you can't deal with it now, how are you going to deal with it when you're running the most powerful country on earth under press scrutiny 24/7?
Listen to my words. All right? Listen to my words.
Some media outlets don't just cover candidates, they endorse them. The New York Times backed Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, and the Los Angeles Times endorsed Barack Obama.
I think major media endorsements are important to the candidate in the sense that voters take a look at who is weighing in on a candidate It's all about the company you keep. I think voters, as they're weighing in the final days on the Democratic side, between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, might take that into account.
Some news channels have moved into the endorsement game. Fox News supported Republican Rudy Giuliani.
Rudolph Giuliani, he's America's mayor. America's mayor. America's mayor.
America's mayor.
Not that it did Giuliani any good. There are overt endorsements, like Fox's, and then there is the more subtle, tonal support. At times, CNN, ABC, and even Comedy Central's Jon Stewart have all been accused of being soft in their coverage of the Republican front-runner, John McCain.
The subtle, sort of constant wearing away that takes place as one person is portrayed as very positive and the other is portrayed as very negative. I'd much rather have the tonal quality endorsement than I would the print.
Celebrities are also playing a role in America's election. The mother of all American celebrities, talk show titan Oprah Winfrey, has become a big part of the Obama campaign.
I think celebrity endorsements don't matter much to voters, but Oprah may be an exception, and I think we're still trying to determine exactly how influential she's been. Oprah is not just a talk show host, she's not just a celebrity, she is a major media mogul.
There are websites that will tell you not just who celebrities support, but how much campaign money they've donated. Actor George Clooney, for instance, sent $2,300 Barack Obama's way. The World Wide Web is the X factor in this campaign. Everything a candidate says that's captured on camera, every mistake he or she makes is amplified over the net, and new political voices seem to crop up every day.
The media, led by networks like CNN, MSNBC, and of course Fox News, the most powerful name and most controversial name in news, they are the ones that are trying to divide Americans by race, gender, and politics.
And America's political destiny will be playing out in media, old and new, as the campaign heads for the biggest Tuesday of them all, the first Tuesday in November. Our Global Village Voices now with their views on how the media covered Super Tuesday.
One of the main criticisms of the American media when it comes to political coverage is that the media focuses too much on the competitive elements of the election, the horse race, who's up, who's down, as opposed to a more substantial look at the issues in the election or a comparison of policy proposals. I think that for better or worse, the American people are more excited by the competitive elements in the election.
In the aftermath now of Super Tuesday, because the elections were so close, the media again is trying to sensationalize the race and looking to create fights where there haven't been fights. Of course, it's going to be a tight race, but I think there really needs to be a focus more on the issues than on some sort of sensationalist approach over the questions of race or gender.
People love to complain about the media. Our Global Village Voice platform gives you the chance to make your complaints public. Email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net and we'll show you how, through a webcam or even a camera phone, to get your voice and face on the air. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. The Afghan government has taken steps to commute the death sentence, but the story of Syed Pervez Kambakhsh still sounds like something from the dark days of the Taliban. Kambakhsh, a 23-year-old journalism student, was arrested earlier this year for distributing an article he had printed off the internet that questioned the Koran's treatment of women. He was quickly sentenced to death by a religious court, and that sentence was upheld by the Afghan Senate. Pressure from the international media and Western leaders has since led to Kambakhsh being granted leave to appeal the sentence, but he will remain in prison unless Afghan President Hamid Karzai intervenes. The New York Times has published an extraordinary letter from the imprisoned Chief Justice of Pakistan, Iftikhar Chowdhury. In the letter, he accuses Pakistan's President Pervez Musharraf of slandering him around the world with charges that are, quote, so baseless that General Musharraf has banned discussion of the charges in the broadcast media. Pakistan's state of emergency ended last December. However, many in the media there have complained that for them it's still going on. Most of the country's top news anchors are on forced leave from their jobs. Saudi Arabia's information minister has banned all live television broadcasts on Saudi state-run channels. The ban came 2 days after a program aired some less than flattering comments about government officials and the Saudi king. The broadcast went out on Al Ikhbariya, a news channel. The media watch group Reporters Without Borders, RSF, which broke the story, says that broadcasts like the one in question represented a big advance for media freedom in Saudi Arabia. RSF publishes an annual press freedom index, and out of the 169 countries on the list, Saudi Arabia was ranked number 148. Israeli settlers on the West Bank are about to get their own radio station, their first since 2003. Israeli authorities have granted a license to Radiosh, a news station, to begin broadcasting in April to the 280,000 Israelis who live in the occupied territories. The last station to broadcast to the West Bank settlements was pirate station Arutz 7, whose ship was raided by Israeli authorities in 2003. Left-wing Israeli organizations such as the peace group Gush Shalom predict that the news station will promulgate an overtly political and anti-Palestinian agenda. However, the man expected to head the news station argues that it will be patriotic, nationalistic, pro-Zionist, but also open-minded. Montel Williams, a veteran of daytime television in the U.S., has had his show canceled shortly after he spoke out about coverage of the Iraq War on U.S. television. Invited on the Fox morning show, Fox and Friends, Williams said there's been too much airtime devoted to the death of screen actor Heath Ledger, not enough coverage of the deaths of U.S. servicemen in Iraq.
I have been repulsed, honestly, by all the coverage. Here's a question I have. Watch this. How many people have died in Iraq since January 1?
Good question. It's about 20.
No, it's not about. It is 28.
Williams, who spent 22 years in the U.S. military, included Fox among the news networks he said had the wrong news priorities. 4 days later, several Fox-owned channels canceled their agreements to carry Williams' show. Montel Williams had been suffering in the ratings. However, some media critics saw the cancellation within days of his critical remarks as more than a coincidence. Coming up after the break, is that the war on terror or the so-called war on terror? The impact of terminology on the way you see the news.